And here we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome wherever you are in the world tuning in with us today. This is me, Jacob, and with me today, yet another special guest where we address and talk about coaching. Um, Here at Raise Awareness of Coaching and Education, we see this bit of contribution as our part where we try to share with you how coaching can help, sharing personal stories and professional stories. Um, Without further ado, I'd like you to welcome with me our guest today, Lisa. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to the conversation.
Absolutely looking forward. Lisa, how about you start telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So, I think that is always a loaded question from an introduction perspective, but I think I'll choose kind of a few pieces, which is to say that I am married. I am the mom of a 17-year-old who is growing up way too fast for this mama. Um, I'm a coach, and in the last 5 years, I am also a business owner.
Right.
And two of the things that underline all of that is I'm a huge hockey fan. So a little
Okay.
disappointed that the Maple Leafs are out. But
Okay.
I'm also a huge advocate and so enjoy spending time in nature.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, I've seen a lot about hockey, in the news. For me, to be honest, I know the game exists, and that's
Mhm.
it. So yeah, sorry to hear about the loss of your team. Hopefully, the next season.
Yeah, we've been saying that since 1967.
Wow. Okay. Well, um, but you never lose hope.
Never.
You never lose hope. That's the spirit. Lisa, so today, coaching can help. Before we start, I always love to, wherever and whenever I meet coaches, I love to ask them, how do they define coaching?
Hmm.
Another loaded question.
It is. I think for me, coaching is about creating a very safe space where an individual or a team really feels held
Mhm.
and is able to through that space is really able to explore the things that maybe they've never taken the opportunity to or never felt that they could before. And
Right.
it's the aha moments that kind of happen along that journey.
The aha moments. We talk a lot about the aha moment. Any aha moment for you personally you'd like to share with the audience?
Oh, there have been many. I think certainly one that is, I'll call it aha again moment is often what I will call it. Is there are as I've been growing my business, there are beliefs that get in that help me, but also get in my way.
Right.
And I've certainly had the opportunity to have the aha moment and then feel that I'm growing in a certain way and then realize actually I'm not actually far ahead. Because there's one thing for me to have an aha moment,
Yeah.
and it's a similar thing with clients, but it's what do you then do with that aha moment? And I think, for me, one of my more recent aha moments is that how do I define myself as a coach? It's the aha moment that it doesn't need to have a definition around specifically a niche.
Yeah.
Um, that a coach in and of itself is really who I am. It's how I show up every day, and I don't have to define that any further.
Right. And I understand from the other day we had a conversation, and you shared with me that you know, and I think this is almost all of us. So a certain you know point we were introduced to coaching.
Hmm.
Would you like to share with us how that journey went?
I would love to. So we're going to go back 10 years.
Okay.
I was at that time, I was at an organization. Well, just before this, I was at an organization that I had been a part of for 25 years.
Right.
And for most of that time, it was great. I had a lot of opportunities to try new things, be in different roles and such. But the last few years, I had really overstayed my welcome. And
Right.
I don't mean on their end, I very much mean on mine.
Yeah.
Um, in that yes, the culture had become toxic, but I myself had also, when I talked about living limiting beliefs earlier, I had a belief that you just kind of stayed in that same organization for a long time. That's what my dad did, one company his whole life.
Yeah.
And I refused to leave without a package because the 10-year ago version of myself believed that I was owed that.
Mhm.
And in that year, so in 2015, what that looked like for me was that meant that this was really impacting my health physically and mentally. My doctor was very ready to, pull me out of work.
Right.
I didn't have a very strong marriage. I was commuting downtown every day. So there wasn't a lot of time to create the connection with my husband. But also, I had a very young son at the time.
Yeah.
And I would be up in the morning on the GO train before he was, up, and I would be home after he was in bed.
Yeah.
And friends, who had time for that? And throughout the course of that year, I had very small whispers of like this can't be all there is. But they were really drowned out by what has taken me a long time to realize was really partly burnout that I was going through at that same time as well.
Right.
And I got the greatest gift of all. I got a package. I know not everyone sees that, but I did, and I did in the moment.
Right.
So much so that, having been on the other side of departures from that organization many times, the meeting gets put in my calendar. It's like, go take a look. Oh, great. HR's booked it. So I know it's happening on Monday morning.
Right.
To the point where, going in Monday morning is my last GO train ride in.
Yeah.
And my husband really thought I had lost it because, it's my last this, it's my last that.
Yeah.
And looking back at it now, I can appreciate that. But in that moment, it was this start of this freedom thing. I didn't know what to do with it, but it was like,
Yeah.
and the other part I think that I'd like to share is that, kind of after that, they gifted me the package was they have a taxi drive you home. And the driver was very, very unsure of what to think of me because a lot of, he said to me, a lot of times when I pick people up here for this kind of drive,
Yeah.
they're quiet or they're on their phone, maybe they're emotional. And he's like, you're none of those things. I'm like, no. I said, today's the first day of the rest of my life.
Beautiful.
And, so he took me back to my car, and probably within about 2 months after that, I had decided kind of as all this was unfolding that I needed to take some time for myself.
Right.
I didn't know who Lisa was. I was so on autopilot and just doing what society expected or what I had heard was supposed to happen. I really couldn't even tell you what I really enjoyed doing because I just did the things that other people suggested.
Yeah.
So in committing to do that time, I had planned a trip into the Great White North, so to speak, a big snowstorm, but I had planned to go away for a few days by myself. And it was also, this three plus decades into my life, it was my first time going away by myself. And just before I left, somebody flipped me a note that said, hey, my friend just got a coaching certification.
Right.
And she's giving away some sessions. And I thought, okay, enter the draw. Didn't think about it again. But then I got back and probably, 6 weeks or so later, I got a message saying that I had won.
Yeah.
And that introduced me to Jen, who was my very first, what I call professional coach, because obviously as a corporate leader, I had coaches that were from the organization.
Yeah.
And it within 2 sessions, I knew 3 things that have been so important to me. But those 3 things are that, one, that this was going to change my life. Coaching was going to change my life. That this was a skill set that I needed because other women needed to feel what I was already starting to feel.
Yeah.
But the other one was that this was the magic so in my corporate life, I was in change management. And that coaching was really the magic that was going to help me work with the leaders to help them through the change. Because oftentimes the focus is on their teams and not themselves. So it was and is incredibly impactful. And very quickly I made the decision, it's time to get certified.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned, a few words that we always, as coaches, I kind of relate to when it comes to coaching. Things like, discovery, like um, who we are, for example, or
Mhm.
what goals we want to set.
Yeah.
Where do we want to head in the future? And you mentioned magic. So, what was it that magical uh, thing that you kind of found about coaching?
That there was, so first I think the magic is a few things all sprinkled together.
Hmm.
Part of what makes it magic. But
Yeah,
the parts that are tangible for me is that there was a way, a person, a career, an opportunity where some I could be with somebody and they
yeah,
could help me be me.
yeah,
They created this place, this space where they gave me space to think. They weren't giving me advice. They weren't trying to answer things for me.
yeah,
And they also, lovingly called me on my stuff as well when
yeah,
it came time to taking action. But it, in my personal sense, that's where the magic is. And then I think another element to that magic is that being able to then do something very similar
yeah,
when you're thinking about, right now I'm working with women in midlife, to really help them through those, big life transitions. And again, as a woman, we spend so much time doing things for everyone else. We have been so programmed to be on autopilot and do things and have all these roles. Just like when you asked me to introduce myself, that we have so many roles.
yeah,
What it's like to actually claim, what do I like to do?
yeah.
And that, the freedom that comes from that and finding out what you want to do. Whew.
That's brilliant. By really finding that, and you said, you help yourself and you help other women, find what they really want to do, and that by itself is great help, not just for you personally or for the coaches you help personally, but for others as well. I think of it, until we really help ourselves, sometimes we won't be able to help others. So
100%. There's
yeah,
a really good reason why, you're on an airplane, they tell you to put your oxygen mask on
yep,
first. Right? I
absolutely
mean,
true.
it sounds cliche because it's just kind of something we hear and we really tune out as a safety message. We don't pay a lot of attention to it, but it is very fundamental to life. If
Yeah,
we're constantly giving away what's left for us, and we as individuals, we deserve to have that same full life that we want to gift everyone else.
yeah, a little bit of selfishness is okay sometimes.
Hmm. Yeah.
And you mentioned as well professional coaching as opposed to what?
Well, for me, the comparison is that inside an organization
Yeah,
that I had access to coaching from, the organization that they were offering and that they were supporting.
yeah,
And in that case, for me, that was something that was really more, that I have come to learn, was really something that was more contracted from the organization and the coach.
yeah,
So I didn't feel in that space that it was actually somebody that was helping me figure out me. It was more they were helping me figure out how to make the best for the organization.
yeah,
And so that motivation, or that, again, that safe space where, in my relationship with my coach today, because also every coach needs a coach,
true.
that is, I know that that person, first of all, has no agenda,
Mhm.
and but they are there to help me figure out mine.
Yeah,
It's not my company, my corporate. That's not there.
yeah. And then coming to your role, as a leadership coach. So how would you then, how you describe how coaching or what you do can help leaders?
Yeah. So I think, well, I don't think, I know.
Yeah,
Um, a lot of times leaders in an organization are given this title of, given a leadership title,
yeah,
and they, not always, but there's not too many times, in my opinion, where an individual who is really good at what they do, they're an expert, right? And the organization doesn't want to lose them.
Yeah.
And so they put them into a people leader role.
Yeah.
And wonderful. But what support have they offered to that person in terms of helping them grow into who they are? What does it mean to be a leader? How do you want to show up as a leader? And investing and figuring out, do they know themselves well enough before they can lead somebody else?
Yeah.
But then I think, just given kind of, the environment that we are in, what we've been in for a number of years, is that it's not just the leadership component, it's then asking that same leader to step into leading change for themselves, their team, and also sometimes the organization.
Yeah.
And that individual, again, doesn't necessarily, they haven't done this before. So they're facing the, well, can I, should I, would I, who can they go and talk to? Who can they work through that? And, I used to think, in my early days of coaching, that this was more so about, newer leaders, but it's really not. It's about, leaders evolve just like all of us do in terms of our approach to leadership. So I may have shown up as a leader one way earlier in my career, but as I've grown, I've shifted the way I show up and what I focus on. And, giving that space for a leader to be able to figure out what that is, being able to hold that space and hold the conversation for the challenges that they're facing. We, as a leader today, you are faced with so much uncertainty. Right. And to be able to have this space that is secure, this space that I can bring, that. So for me, it's part of my coaching principles, but really whoever I'm coaching, they're naturally resourceful, creative, and whole. They're not broken, and I don't need to fix them. But what I bring to them is I'm holding them in this space.
Yeah.
And leaders need that more today than ever.
That's interesting. Whenever we address the topic of coaching and leadership, coaching and corporate, even though, I believe the modern coaching, started with business coaching. Mm-hmm. So it started somewhere there. But what challenges you could think of that stop a lot of corporates from really embracing coaching?
So my perspective is actually that organizations do embrace coaching, but they embrace it only at the senior levels.
Okay.
And they will embrace it in terms of, when you get to C-suite or, at VP, depending on the type of organization, that's something that's part of your development or part of your compensation package.
Yeah. Is
that coach. And I mean, I have seen it with so many organizations that I have as clients, or previously before I left corporate. It's a privilege piece. Okay. It's not something that's really brought in as to be something that is about leadership growth and development. And if we think about how many leaders are, quote unquote, in the middle of the organization who need similar investments, they need that development. So in some ways, so they're dealing more of that early part of their growth as a leader in terms of defining who they are as a leader. Yeah. Yes, senior leader is dealing with bigger concerns and has more on their plate. Yes, sure. But it's from a different perspective. And oftentimes coaching is something that it's held into privilege. It's held as only at this level in an organization. And I think that's a big miss.
Right. And what would you suggest as the way forward to make coaching into not as privileged as you put it?
So I think one of the big pieces is around the mindset of those folks that, so having more leaders advocate for what it is that they have received, realized, been able to do as a result of having a coach. Right. And to be able to step back and say that this is something that I want those younger leaders or those leaders that are on my broader team to have as well. That it isn't something that I need to hold near and dear, because it is right now that's something that's wrapped in a privilege. And so I think it ties into, for some organizations, it ties into the whole piece that, there's part of the prestige that comes with a particular role. It used to be the corner office, but there are rarely offices anymore. But it is, we often, in an organization, people are often thought of only as numbers.
Yeah.
And that, people are really something to manage, but really they're the greatest asset of that company.
Yeah.
And being able to help shift that mindset
Right.
Coaching is one of those pieces that both helps bring and prove that, but also would benefit from an organization that really does believe that people are their greatest asset.
What benefits would an organization get from applying this, coaching all across the board?
So they're going to have leaders move into leadership roles with more confidence and clarity a whole lot faster. They're going to, because without it, right, they're left to figure it out on their own, or they're left as, oh, I went to that one course this year.
Yeah.
Yep. And I spent 2 days doing that, but did I apply it? So the investment that companies make into training, whether it's on the job or it's dedicated training, you need to be able to take those learnings and actually integrate them into your habits and your behaviors.
Yeah.
And coaching plays a significant role in understanding how you behave. Yes, I can learn a new tool. I can learn that this is the way I'm supposed to behave in a particular organization, but I have to internalize it because change is personal. And as an individual, I have to figure out, well, how does this fit into my day? How does this change the way that I apply this practice? Or how does this change how I interact with this team or whatever it may be? And so introducing coaching at more levels or more broadly is going to have a higher return on investment. So first of all, as I said, people are going to be able to really get into the value that a leader can bring quicker, less time figuring it out. So we're going to change their curve as a leader in terms of that change curve. Yeah. But when you think about all the investments that an organization does choose to make, which typically their checkbox is training, it actually then takes the things that training course promised to do. It's actually part of the sustainment of that. It's actually part of the ROI on those things. So where a company will invest in that, you need to invest in how do I actually embed that into that person and that team.
Yeah, I think when you mentioned ROI, return on investment, I think this is something a lot of, if not all, corporates can relate to. So we're speaking their language. Lisa, I know I'm quite focusing on corporates here. But we'll shift this in a minute. So back to leaders. Sometimes you are kind of faced with a lot of pressure from, let's say, higher management.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you as a leader or manager at this role and position want to help your team and want to. So how would you deal with both? On one side, you've got the higher top management pushing you harder and further, just to push your team. Think of them as numbers, as you said. But at the same time, you want to bring that connection to the team and compassion. How would you combine these two?
How would I combine that if I was that leader, or how would that be something I would leverage from as a coach?
Let's start as a leader. So you are in that role, facing that pressure.
So for me, and I think this is very much about where somebody is on their leadership journey. So that pressure that you're receiving, right? It is understanding what is that pressure about? Like, what is it specifically that needs to be delivered? And how is that prioritized versus the other pieces that we need? And my conversations or my interactions with my senior leaders is very much around, yes, I need to understand their perspective. Of course, they're my leaders. I need to understand the priorities. But what I also need to do is be able to stand up and have a conversation about my team. Meaning, you have asked us to do, I'm going to call it X, Y, Z, but we already have A to Z on the table. And so what is it that I'm going to be able to take away? Because I'm not going to let my team burn out because we have this incremental workload, right? Or we have these things that need to be done now. And if we can't do something from a resourcing perspective, I'm not going to let my team have, from a mental and physical health perspective, suffer. And that in and of itself takes, courage and bravery, but it's also typically something that as you understand you and you understanding how I, because this is me in this example, show up as a leader. I know that I have to deliver on what I'm being asked to deliver, but I can't be delivering on it blindly without understanding the impact to the people, which is my team.
Yeah. I think, yeah, mental health, burnout, these two as well, one of the major topics. We address that as well in other episodes. So we might not delve into this at this moment. This will take time as we're not running out of time, but we are almost there. So Lisa, life coaching. So if we can shift now into life coaching or
Mhm.
our personal life, how would you see coaching help
Mm.
on the personal level?
So I think some of the aspects are similar to what I mentioned before. But so if I think about, one of the reasons, obviously, that I'm focusing on working right now with women in midlife is because that's where I am, or that's the part of me that's where I've been. And, you know, in this world, we come into this world and we are open to understanding, we're open to curiosity, we're exploring. And as we go through the first 2 or 3 decades, we see lots of things, we experience lots of things. We take on other people's beliefs, we take on other sort of stories, but we also take on our experiences.
Yeah.
And at some point, as an individual, and I'm going to say, for my clients as a woman, we realize that we're not designing our life for us, and that we get to a point where like this is not okay anymore.
Yeah.
And to be able to help another woman understand what their values are. Like, can they actually name the values? Can they name their values and know what's important to them? Like, we will often, as women, like, we will say, well, our family, our kids. Yes, but what else? And being able to help my clients understand that. So oftentimes when you're in conflict with somebody, you're in conflict because they're stepping all over your values. And and then being able to, like, well, what do you do about that?
Yeah.
And being able to design a life that is a life that you want to live intentionally. Like, you have the pen,
Yeah.
right? But I know many women don't realize that they can pick that pen up and write their own chapter.
Yeah.
And they've been busy doing it for everyone else or for what was expected of them. And we're only here for a very short time.
Yeah.
We deserve to be able to go after those dreams, to figure out what's possible.
Yeah.
And for me, life, so we have one life. And so, a life coaching is actually very critical to the transitions that you go through in your lifetime. Like, for me, when I think about midlife, yes, there is, a significant change in terms of health with menopause and things like that.
Yeah.
But it's also a time where typically your kids are getting older. You might be getting empty nesting, or at least you're getting to a point where they don't need you as much because maybe they're driving. You have elderly parents who you're also taking care of.
Yeah.
And so, but what is it you're doing for you? Do you know what your dream is? Do you know when you wake up in the morning what it is you want to go after? Do you know how to find moments of joy in a day that's hard as anything?
Yeah.
And that, to me, is the gift that life coaching brings.
Beautiful. Lisa, as we start wrapping up in a minute, if you could share with us, some of the audience might be listening and thinking, should I or should I not try coaching? I've heard about it a lot. What would you like a message share with them that encourage them and push them that last push to actually try coaching?
That you deserve to invest in you. So you will have, invested in your house, perhaps in your health, your vehicles, vacations. But where and how are you investing in yourself? And you don't have to, coaching isn't something you're committing to for the rest of your life, but don't you deserve to find out what's on the inside that needs to get out? What's on the inside that needs to get out for yourself personally in terms of those possibilities and dreams? But, I very much also believe that everybody has one or more superpowers that the rest of the world needs. You have gifts to bring to the world. And if you, first of all, you're not connected to those, how do the rest of us get to feel the joy from your gifts?
Yeah.
But as an individual, you deserve the best life possible. You deserve to turn off the autopilot,
Yeah.
and step into a life that's for you on purpose.
Beautiful. Well, Lisa, this is all the time we have today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Definitely enjoyed it. And, what we hope is, someone somewhere, mainly in Canada, as we've, focus on Canada now as an audience. But if there is one soul that, who might have listened to what you've shared today and found this helpful and useful in a way, I think for me personally and for us, this is so rewarding. So that one person is a great start, and hopefully more many to help in the future. Thank you very much, Lisa. Really enjoyed it, and yeah, we might have this live talk again.
I would love to.
Thank you so very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone, wherever you are, and those who have tuned in, and those who might be watching or listening later on in the future. Thank you, and until next time.